Hey guys, Amanda with Nomad again. I am here this time with a Hell's Revenge video from Moab, Utah, USA. This is the very first trail that we did when we got to Moab, which I will explain later, I believe was a huge mistake. As you'll see, the very first thing that you do on this trail is go over a very tall rock that has zero forgiveness whatsoever. I call this one a moderate trail with very extreme consequences. So keep that in mind if you plan on doing this trail. I think that every person who is brave enough to go to Moab should do this trail. We had a great time doing it. It's just very long and very slow going. As we go through the first portion of this trail, you're going to notice it's a pretty simple trail starting out. You've got a few rocks, but nothing too difficult to get over. Most people could do this in a stock Jeep without any issues, and anything where you're going to have any issues is going to have a bypass. You are going to notice a few different times when we are going through this trail, we do have to stop and pull off to the side because there were a lot of side-by-sides coming the opposite direction on this trail. This is a two-way trail. You don't have any need to loop back around and come back out the way that you went in, but you can if you want to, if you don't want to do the entirety of the trail. Now this trail is about a mile east of Moab, so you do have a good little distance that you have to go outside of the city to be able to get here. This is a Bureau of Land Management trail, so I believe the access for this trail is $5 a day per vehicle, so it's incredibly inexpensive. And when we went, they just had it set up on the honor system. It is classified as a 3 to 6, and it says on the Jeep Badge of Honor app that it can be an extremely difficult trail, and there were portions of the trail that we would classify as more difficult. But a majority of this trail is not going to be very difficult at all, simply because it's just a lot of dirt roads or really small rocks that you have to go over. It's just those few obstacles that you're going over that you really have to worry about. We were pleasantly surprised by the number of bypasses, so that those in our group who did not want to do the more difficult things like Hell's Gate were able to take bypasses without doing the extremely difficult obstacles. But there are a few portions where there are not bypasses, but you can get over them in a mostly stock Jeep with a good spotter. As we go through this easier portion of the trail, I am going to take this time to mention the Book of Moab. There is a book that you can find on Amazon, in most gas stations within Moab, and as well as at several stores in and around the Moab area that has a detailed description of every single trail in Moab in it. I highly recommend, if you're going to make the trip to Moab, this book is the first thing that you purchase. If you just Google Book of Moab, you'll find it, and it has every single trail, both Badge of Honor and otherwise, in it. It tells you about every single obstacle. It tells you about the difficulty levels of every single trail, as well as all the details you need to know. Things like distance from town, how far they are from gas stations, how long it takes to do them, the length of the trail, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of the information that I'm giving is from that book, and we were so incredibly happy to have that book because it gave us a lot of really valuable information. Now, as we are going through this trail, you are going to notice that a majority of the ground that we are driving on is black. And that is because that is the heavily traveled portion of the trail. Most of the time, as long as you stay on the black portion of the rocks, you're just fine getting over most obstacles. The other thing that is important to note about these obstacles and these trails is that there are arrows on the ground. If you keep the arrows on the ground centered on your vehicle, you will be at almost the perfect line every time when you're going over obstacles. At about the 5-minute mark here in the video, you saw one of the most difficult obstacles, and it's just a steep incline where you really don't have any visibility of where you're going, and you do have to rely pretty heavily on the people who are down the rock spotting you to be able to tell you where to put your tires. That is one of the obstacles that I think has the most pucker factor that does not have a bypass, but again, you can complete it pretty easily if you just have somebody on the other side of the hill. According to the Jeep Badge of Honor app, The Hell's Revenge Trail is in its entirety just over 6 miles, so you could very easily do this in a half a day if you're doing it with experienced wheelers. We had a few off-roaders in our group who were not quite as experienced, so we did have to go a little bit slower. Plus, we stopped to enjoy the best obstacle, Hell's Gate, as we were going through this trail. So there's not really any solid reason why you need a full day to do it unless you are an inexperienced off-roader. But if you are going to Moab, I would recommend allotting a little bit of extra time to be able to do this trail so that you can stop and enjoy Hell's Gate, whether you're going to do it yourself or just be a spectator. Now, that being said, I have mentioned this in some of our other Moab videos, but I am going to go ahead and mention it here as well. When we went to Moab, we made a couple of really big mistakes that I would caution every single person who goes not to make. The first big mistake that we made is we went in the month of July, and it was just utterly miserable. It was miserably hot, and it was incredibly difficult to finish trails because we had Jeeps overheating and people overheating. We had our dogs with us, and they had a really difficult time. It's just in the month of July, it is so hot in the state of Utah that it is so hard for anybody who's not used to that level of heat to be able to complete much of anything. We did start really early in the morning when we did trails to kind of combat some of the summer heat, but by 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it was so hot that we just had to go find a restaurant or a store to go sit down in so we had some air conditioner. So mistake number 1, going to Moab at the wrong time of year. Mistake number 2, we were camping, so there really wasn't any escape from the heat unless, like I said, we went to a restaurant or a store. So if you're going to go to Moab in the summertime, I highly recommend getting a cabin or a house or a hotel or something so you have some sort of an escape from the heat. And of course, starting your wheeling very, very early in the day. Those were 2 of our huge mistakes. Another huge mistake that I hate to say we did on this trip was we did Hell's Revenge first. This was our first trail as soon as we arrived in Moab, and it really was kind of a scary introduction for several of the people who were with us. It's not an easy trail to do, and there's several parts of this trail that have an absolutely massive pucker factor. If it was possible for me to go back and do this again, I would do Poison Spider first, since it's a little bit easier of a trail, then maybe Fins and Things, then Hell's Revenge. I would not make this the first trail because it really wears you out on Moab very quickly, and it made a couple of people in our group just not want to wheel again. This is the point of the video where I say the same thing that I say on every single one of these videos. Do not do this trail unless you are well prepared. Recovery gear is a must. A winch is highly recommended. Lockers are highly recommended. They say in the app that they recommend that you have a lift and larger tires. If you're doing this on a mostly stock Jeep, do it with more experienced people who are able to recover you if you are not able to make it over an obstacle. And of course, as always, bring plenty of water and plenty of food because this is a long one and it is going to take you most of the day, and there is not anywhere on this trail to stop and get any kind of refreshments. Now, this is the point of the trail where we are coming up on Hell's Gate. Hell's Gate is one of the more famous obstacles at the Utah Moab Wheeling area. Hell's Gate is a more difficult obstacle. I would highly recommend, if you are going to do it, that you be at least partially experienced and have at minimum 37-inch tires and lockers. Only 2 people on our group, myself and then the white Jeep that you'll see here in just a moment, decided to do Hell's Gate, and we both actually did it twice because we wanted to fully experience it. This is kind of a bucket list item for me, so I had a really great time doing it, and I was really excited the entire time. It kind of felt like the culmination of several years of work to try to prepare my Jeep for Utah and for Moab in general. I absolutely loved doing it. I did it once without my husband and then once with my husband so that I could fully experience it and he could too. I will say it was a tiny bit of a letdown because it wasn't near as hard as I thought it was going to be. Based on the pictures and videos I had seen, I was convinced that this was going to be incredibly difficult. Really, if you turn on your lockers and you keep your Jeep pointed straight and you just accelerate very, very slightly, you will make it down and then back up the hill with absolutely no problem. At least I did. I was very careful about the line that I took to make sure that I was being safe, but it's not something that I think that any person who has a little bit of experience wheeling would have a hard time doing. As you can see here, there's a ton of spectators, so that is a little bit nerve-wracking having all these people watch you, but if you just take it slowly and you trust your Jeep, you'll make it no problem. Now, going down Hell's Gate is definitely easier than coming up Hell's Gate. I will say that, but it's well worth it. It was a great time doing it. It was not near as hard as I thought it was going to be, like I already said. And if you feel like you can do it, then give it a try. If you're worried about it, I am certain there's 100 people out here an hour every single day. So you could always find somebody to ride with to get a feel for it before you actually do it in your own vehicle. I have seen videos of all kinds of different vehicles and trucks doing it, so as long as you have some clearance and some flex, you'll make it up no problem. As you can see, only 2 people in our group did Hell's Gate. So there is a bypass for it. It is not required at all. It's almost a detour. You can just drive right around it if you want to without ever stopping. So if you're not comfortable doing it, don't worry. You can absolutely finish the entirety of Hell's Revenge without stopping at Hell's Gate. This right here is really the halfway point of the trail. However, everything difficult has already passed at this point by the time you finish Hell's Gate. So I will say, a few steep inclines. There's a bowl that you can drive down in, which is kind of hard to describe until you see it. You'll notice that here in a few minutes on the video. And the rest of it's really just kind of driving in a straight line. A few rocks, a few inclines, a few steep declines. So more of just being careful and taking it slow. I'm gonna let you guys enjoy the rest of this video without me talking over it. Give us a like, a follow, a subscribe on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Nomad Off-Road TX. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you guys again soon.